The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon in October, and I almost didn't answer it. I was out on the back porch of my house in Tucson, drinking my second cup of coffee and watching a roadrunner pick its way along the top of the adobe wall that separates my yard from the neighbors. The kind of quiet afternoon I'd gotten used to over the past 4 years, the kind I'd learned to protect. When I saw my daughter's name on the screen, my stomach dropped the way it always did, not with hope anymore. That had burned off a long time ago. Just a kind of bracing, the way you tighten up before a cold wind, I answered. Dad, her voice was the same as always, efficient, like she was already halfway through a different conversation. I've been trying to reach you. She hadn't been. I checked my phone every morning. One text sent 3 days earlier that said simply, call me when you get a chance. No urgency, no warmth, nothing that told me anything except that she wanted something. I'm here now, I said. There was a pause, and I could hear her breathing, could almost picture her sitting at that kitchen table in her house in Scottsdale, the one I'd helped her and her husband buy 6 years ago with $120,000 I'd pulled out of my retirement savings. She hadn't asked me to come see it since the day they moved in. I saw the photos you posted, she said. The new truck. I'd bought a used F-250 in August. Nearly new, low-mileage, deep blue. I'd posted 2 pictures of it on Facebook because my buddy Jerry had asked me what I ended up going with. What about it? I said. It's just. She stopped. Started again. Dad, you've clearly got money sitting around if you can buy a truck like that. I set my coffee mug down on the porch railing very carefully. I didn't say anything. Kevin and I have been talking, she continued. We're in a rough spot right now. The business isn't doing what we hoped, and we've got the balloon payment coming up on the house in March. We need $150,000, and we need it before the end of the year. The roadrunner on the wall paused, tilted its head at me, then disappeared over the other side. I'd like you to come for Thanksgiving, my daughter said. We can talk through everything then, as a family. I sat with that phrase for a moment, as a family. My wife, Joanna, passed away 9 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 4 months from diagnosis to the end. Our daughter was 26 at the time. I thought the grief would pull us closer. For a while, maybe it did. But somewhere in the years that followed, as she built her life, married Kevin, moved into that house in Scottsdale, the distance grew in ways I couldn't quite name or catch. Phone calls became quarterly, then holiday only. Then even the holidays got thin, the visits short and strained, full of that particular politeness that's worse than silence. Last Thanksgiving I'd spent alone. She'd said they were going to Kevin's parents in Sedona. I'd eaten turkey from the deli counter at Fry's and watched football in my living room with the dog. I'll think about it, I said. Dad, I said I'll think about it. After I hung up, I sat on that porch for a long time. The sun moved. The light on the mountains changed from white to gold to the deep amber of late afternoon. I thought about Joanna. I thought about the little girl my daughter used to be, the one who would climb into bed with us on Saturday mornings and demand pancakes shaped like animals. I thought about all the versions of her I had loved without condition and without asking for anything back. Then I went inside and called my attorney. His name is Whitmore, Ted Whitmore, and I've known him since we were both younger men. He handles estate planning, trusts, the kind of dry legal architecture that nobody wants to think about until they have to. I'd updated my will a few years back, but nothing beyond that. Tell me what you're thinking, he said, once I'd walked him through the phone call. I want to know what my options are, I said. Before I walk into that house in November, I want to know exactly what I'm walking in with. We talked for 45 minutes. By the end of it, I had a clearer picture than I'd had in years, not just of my legal position, but of what I actually wanted, what mattered to me, what I was and wasn't willing to give. The following week, I drove to his office on a Wednesday morning and signed a set of documents that I'd been putting off for years. I restructured my estate. I established a charitable remainder trust with the bulk of my liquid assets, just over $400,000, naming a veterans support organization and the children's hospital where Joanna had volunteered for 6 years. I updated my will. I changed the beneficiary designations on my remaining accounts. I left Ted's office and stopped at the Whataburger on the way home and ate a double patty melt in my truck and thought about whether I felt sad. I didn't, particularly. That surprised me. What I felt was something closer to clarity, the kind that comes when you've been carrying a weight so long you stop noticing it, and then you set it down. Thanksgiving was on a Thursday, obviously, but my daughter had asked me to come Wednesday evening, so we have time to really talk, she'd said. I packed a single bag, loaded my dog into the truck, and drove the 2 hours to Scottsdale on a dry, clear November afternoon. Their house was in a development near the McDowell Mountains, the kind of neighborhood where every house is beige or tan, and the lawns are all xeriscaped, and the HOA sends letters about parking. It's a nice house. I'd been in it exactly 4 times since they moved in. Kevin answered the door. My son-in-law is 41, broad-shouldered, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from having things come easy. He's not a bad man, I want to be fair about that. He's not cruel. He just has that quality, or maybe it's something they share, the two of them, of making you feel like your presence is something to be managed rather than welcomed. Good drive, he said. Fine, I said. Dry out there. My daughter appeared behind him. She's the image of her mother, or was once dark hair, Joanna's eyes. She looked tired, I noticed, and something else underneath the tiredness, eager, maybe, or careful. She hugged me, and I hugged her back, and the dog put his paws up on her leg until she laughed and pushed him down. They'd cooked. A real dinner, turkey, the whole spread. I appreciated the effort. We ate and talked about surface things, the weather, the holidays, the minor news of extended family. My son-in-law's brother had a new baby. My daughter's friend had moved to Colorado. Safe, neutral topics. After dinner, after the dishes were cleared, Kevin poured 3 glasses of wine and set them on the coffee table in the living room, and my daughter sat down across from me with her hands folded in her lap. Dad, she said, we want to talk to you about what I mentioned on the phone. All right, I said. She laid it out carefully. The restaurant Kevin had invested in 3 years ago, the one that never quite got its footing before COVID and never really recovered after. The loan they'd taken out against the house, the balloon payment coming in March. They'd been trying to sell some assets, but the market was slow. They needed $150,000, ideally as a gift, or if not a gift, then a private loan they'd pay back over time. She looked at me steadily when she finished. Kevin looked at the floor. I took a sip of wine. Can I ask you something first? I said. She nodded. When did you last call me just to talk? Not to ask for something. Not for a holiday, just to call. A long pause. Dad, that's not. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, I said, and I meant it. I'm asking because I need you to understand something before I say what I'm going to say. I'm not angry. I'm not here to lecture you. But I need you to sit with that question for a minute. My daughter's jaw tightened. Kevin refilled his own glass. I spent last Thanksgiving alone, I said. The one before that. I drove up here, and I sat at that table and felt like a stranger in your house. When your mother died, I stopped, took a breath. I thought we'd hold on to each other. I thought that's what would happen. And instead, I've watched the gap get wider every year, and I kept telling myself it was normal. People get busy. Life pulls you in different directions. And then you call me about a truck I bought secondhand and ask me for $150,000. My daughter's eyes were bright, not crying, not yet, but close. I love you, I said. That doesn't change. It never will. You're my daughter, and I love you the way I loved your mother, which means without condition and without an expiration date. But I am not an ATM, and I am not a resource to be accessed when the balance sheet gets difficult. I am your father, and for the past several years that hasn't seemed to matter to you. The room was very quiet. I need you to know, I continued, that before I drove here today, I made some changes to my estate. I want to be honest with you about that, because I think you deserve to know, and because I think the conversation we're having right now is one we should have had years ago, not over a request for money. My daughter looked up. Her voice, when it came, was careful. What kind of changes? The kind that reflect what matters to me, I said. I established a trust. The bulk of what I've saved over my lifetime will go to the veterans organization your mother and I used to support and to the children's hospital where she volunteered. What remains will come to you, but it's a fraction of what you might have expected, and I want you to know that now rather than later. My son-in-law set his glass down. The sound of it was small and sharp in the silence. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I want you to hear that clearly. I'm doing it because I finally asked myself what Joanna would have wanted for the time I have left, and the answer wasn't to spend it waiting for phone calls that don't come. There are people in this world who need help. I can help them. And I can do that while still being your father if you want me to be. if that means something to you." My daughter pressed her fingers to her mouth. When she lowered her hand, she was crying. "The 150,000, she said. "Is that?" "I won't be giving it to you," I said. "Not right now, not like this." Kevin stood up. I think he wanted to say something, argue, maybe, or redirect, but he looked at my daughter's face and seemed to think better of it. He went to the kitchen. I heard the sound of him filling a glass of water. My daughter wiped her eyes. She looked at me for a long time. "Were you going to tell me?" she asked. "About the trust. If I hadn't asked for money, were you ever going to say anything?" "Eventually," I said, "when it felt right, or when it didn't anymore." She was quiet for a while. "I don't know when I stopped calling," she said, and her voice had changed. The careful edge was gone. She just sounded tired and young and a little lost, the way she used to sound when things went wrong when she was a teenager. I don't know when it got so easy not to. I kept thinking I'd do it next week, or after this thing was handled, or once things calmed down. And they never did. "I know," I said. "I'm not," she stopped. "I don't want to be the person who only calls when she needs something. Then don't be." She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. We sat there in their living room with the wine going warm, and Kevin somewhere in the kitchen, and Joanna's absence sitting between us, the way it always has, heavy and familiar and not entirely unwelcome. I don't know what the next year looks like. I don't know if she'll call more often, if the gap will close, if we'll find our way back to something that resembles what we should have had all along. I'm 67 years old, and I've spent enough time waiting for things to change on their own to know that they don't, mostly. You change them or they stay. What I know is this. I drove home the next morning in clear November light, with my dog asleep on the seat beside me, and the mountains going pink and gold on both sides of the highway, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not vindicated. That's not quite the word. I felt like myself. Like a man who knew what he was worth and had stopped apologizing for it. Like a father who loved his daughter enough to tell her the truth. I've made my choices. I've put the paperwork in order. What I have left, the time, the quiet mornings, the dog, the decent truck, the memory of Joanna's laugh, I intend to spend it on the things that matter. She can call whenever she's ready. The number hasn't changed.